Welcome to your comprehensive briefing of the Wall Street Journal for Thursday, March 5th, 2026. We will navigate today's headlines page by page with a special deep dive into the opinion and business and finance sections. The front page is dominated by escalating conflict. A U.S. submarine has torpedoed an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean, the first such sinking since World War II. Meanwhile, Apple is moving into attack mode, pricing the new iPhone 17e at $599 to pressure its rivals. China has signaled a new era of slower expansion, setting a GDP target of between 4.5% and 5%. At home, the battle for Fed independence intensifies as Jerome Powell faces sustained pressure from the Trump administration. On page A2, services sector activity continues to rise while private sector payrolls added 63,000 jobs. Page A3 reports a tragic lawsuit against Google, where a father blames the Gemini chatbot for his son's death, highlighting the psychological risks of effective AI. Global progress on child marriage is slowing due to political instability. In politics, James Tallarico's bet on Hispanic voters paid off in Texas, while Dan Crenshaw becomes the first House incumbent to lose a 2026 primary. Pages A5 and A6 detail the air campaign against Iran. Israel is targeting internal security forces to foster revolt, while U.S. and Israeli strikes on underground missile cities are degrading Tehran's ability to strike back. The Senate has rejected a measure to require congressional approval for these operations. Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, has emerged as a top choice for succession, signaling a potentially harder line direction. This comes as an oil bottleneck in the Mideast threatens the global economy, with several thousand ships stuck near the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. has expanded its campaign against drug traffickers in Latin America with a joint operation in Ecuador. Domestically, page A10 shows a record 6% of workers are tapping 401k funds for hardship withdrawals, a sign of heightened financial stress. In personal technology, the MacBook Neo and iPhone 17e are reviewed as Apple trades pro features for a splash of color. Page A12 reviews the Gainsborough exhibition at the Frick, noting that noble nature trumps high birth. We now move to the opinion section, where the journal's analysts weigh in on the strategic challenges facing the nation and the world. This section offers a deep dive into the political and moral complexities of the current conflict. On page A13, Barton Swaim discusses the Democrats' instant opposition to the Iran strikes, arguing it arises from an urge to avoid friction with the progressive left. He notes that delusion more than any other prevented U.S. policymakers for more than a decade from acknowledging Iran's active malevolence. Karl Rove highlights that Trump's Iran challenge is at home, noting that the war isn't popular. He urges the administration to provide more comprehensive and persistent explanations of its objectives to sway public sentiment. Quoting Lincoln, "Public sentiment is everything." Bradley Martin warns of an urgent need to contain Turkey, arguing that while neutralizing Iran, the U.S. must ensure Ankara doesn't take its place. He notes Turkey's history as a difficult NATO partner and its own regional ambitions. The review and outlook on page A14 addresses the pessimism in the media regarding the Iran campaign. It argues that the war is going better than expected, with Iran's political and military leaders killed in the first hour and its missile stocks gradually being destroyed. The journal also warns of ominous signals for Republicans in Texas, where Democrats turned out in record numbers. This could indicate significant trouble for control of the Senate in the upcoming midterm elections. A critique of Gavin Newsom's climate policy argues that cutting allowances for his cap and tax program could add $1.21 a gallon to California gas prices, potentially driving in-state refiners out of business. Page A15 features Michael Tracy on the Epstein transparency travesty, where sweeping redactions have made a farce of the exercise. He argues that misguided deference to supposed victims is obscuring the truth. Amit Segal outlines the new Israeli rules of engagement, stating that proportionate responses are a thing of the past. He argues that when enemies announce their intention to destroy you, believe them, and that Israel must now overwhelm its foes. Finally, in opinion, John Saylor criticizes the Mellon Foundation's radical prisoner education projects, arguing they focus on political activism and shifting the narrative rather than practical education. In sports on page A16, the Detroit Pistons bad boys are back, leading the league in technical fouls while winning. We also remember storied college football coach Lou Holtz, who died at age 89. We now enter our deep dive into the business and finance section. The Iran conflict has sent shockwaves through the markets, halting a weeks-long bond rally and pushing yields to their highest levels in months. On page B1, the U.S.-Israeli attacks have pushed the 10-year Treasury yield back above 4%. Interestingly, U.S. drillers aren't rushing to increase production despite the price spike, preferring to return cash to shareholders instead. Individual investors poured $2.2 billion into stocks on Monday, staying loyal to the buy-the-dip playbook. Meanwhile, newspapers are looking to AI as a reporting aid, amassing free subscriptions through AI-assisted newsletters. Page B2 reports that Continental predicts higher earnings despite tariff challenges. Volvo is lifting output of its EX60 SUV to meet strong demand in Europe, with U.S. order books opening later this spring. Bayer reported a steeper net loss of €3.76 billion on litigation charges as it works to resolve years-long legal battles over its Roundup weed killer. The company aims to significantly contain litigation risk by the end of the year. On page B3, Gayle King signs a new deal with CBS News, providing stability amid a network shakeup. Adidas targets an operating profit of around €2.3 billion, including a €400 million hit from U.S. tariffs. Broadcom authorized a $10 billion share buyback as AI demand drives sales. Page B4 reports that Microsoft helped seize over 300 web domains to shut down a massive criminal hacking platform. The Markets Digest on page B7 shows major U.S. indexes rising on hopes for a brief conflict. Commodities on page B8 see gold at $5,120.20 per troy ounce, a $12.80 increase. Page B11 features NVIDIA swearing off an earnings crutch by including stock-based compensation in its metrics. We also see that the U.S. oil fund ETF is outperforming the commodity itself due to market backwardation. That concludes your page-by-page briefing of the Wall Street Journal for March 5th, 2026. From the depths of the Indian Ocean to the halls of the Fed, the world is in a state of rapid transition. Thank you for joining us for this strategic download.